Yo, Kpaceguy here. What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. And in front of me, you see two sets of speakers. The ones on the inner sides are going to be the Polk Audio L200s, the new Legend series speakers, and on the outside, left and right, are the old Polk Audio LSim Bookshelves, the 703s. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do some A/B testing. I have went and picked out 4 different songs, 2 being classical, 1 being reggae, and 1 being a choral arrangement of a song you guys probably know. And what we're going to do is we're going to put these head to head and really see what the difference is between the two. On the spec sheet, there's a lot of similarities. Same sensitivity level, same bass reproduction, same size, just about the same weight. So we're going to see what it is about the L200s that are supposed to be so much better. So I picked these songs for a reason. One of these songs is going to really test the bass. So with the L200s, they have a new turbine cone that's supposed to give you more accurate, smoother, and cleaner bass response with a little bit more ease compared to the LSim 703s. We're going to test that and see if that's the case because they both have the same frequency response. So I'm wondering what the difference is going to be as far as accuracy goes, or maybe tonal quality, that good stuff. There's also a song that's going to test the highs, test that new tweeter. We all know the L200s have a new tweeter with a better waveguide, and they extended it up to 50,000 kilohertz instead of 40,000 that the LSim 703s have. So we're going to see if we can actually hear that difference. And we're not going to hear up to 50,000 kilohertz, don't get me wrong, we can't hear that high, but it's going to be the crossover point that's going to be the factor. So we're going to listen to some tracks and see how that crossover point is different between the two, and if it sounds sweeter, smoother, and etc. And then another track's going to test the vocals, and it's an all-male chorus. So it's going to be difficult for these speakers to reproduce the separation between the tenor voice and the bass voice and the baritone voice. And if you don't know what those terms mean, it's just the different ranges of the male voice, the deepest to the middle to the highest that a male can sing. And so these speakers are going to try their best to separate those vocal parts so that I can hear the tenor and the bass and then the baritone and all those different subsections. We want to be able to hear that. So we're going to see what speaker does better in that category as well. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and start with the reggae song and see how that bass does. It has a walking bass line in that song that I think is really going to reflect the potential or the ability of these two speakers. And we're going to switch back and forth between the two so you guys can hear which one you're listening to, or see which one you're listening to, and I'll note that on the screen when I switch from one speaker to the other. So let's go ahead and do it.
guys, so that's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like, hit the comment button, and subscribe while you're there. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Kpaceguy out. Peace. I'm just kidding. We're going to talk about what we just heard. And let's go ahead and start off with the reggae track. Now, again, the taller ones there, those are the 703s, the LSim series. The one just short of it, there you go, right there are the Legend speakers, the L200s. So let's talk about what we heard, and let's start off the reggae track. So the reggae track had that walking bass line, which was going to test the bass response, because again, both speakers perform similarly in their low extension. So I wanted to hear exactly what was the difference if they both have the same kind of frequency response and all that good stuff. And for the LSim 703s, they are a great speaker. I absolutely love them. But when you put them up against the newer brother in the family, you really start to hear a little bit difference. And one of them is not going to be necessarily how deep the bass goes, but it's going to be how smooth it sounded. The walking bass line when the reggae track, the doom, 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 it sounded very, very smooth in comparison to the LSim 703s. Very, very smooth on the L200s. I really liked how tame it was. Because that certain track, I've listened to it on different speakers, and oftentimes I find it sounding very bloated, very muffled, and kind of just not easy to listen to. But with these speakers, they did a better job of kind of keeping me like bobbing my head and snapping my fingers, versus something else that kind of makes me like change the track or something, if that makes any sense. So when you put the two together, the L200s had a much smoother bass response. It wasn't too bloated, it wasn't muffled sounding or anything like that, and it sounded very smooth as the bass line was walking throughout the song. Not that the 703s don't sound great either, but when you put them up against their big brother, that's the difference in the two. I think the L200s did very well with keeping that bass smooth and responsive and tight and accurate, versus the 703s, which again aren't terrible, but it's been upgraded, so you kind of expect it to be better on the L200s. Now the next one that we did was the classical songs, and it's the that song was really good with helping me hear the new tweeter, the highs, and stereo separation. There's not a lot of instruments that is in that track. It's really just one or two, maybe three. And what that allowed me to hear was how the crossover was is in play. There's a new crossover in the new speakers because there's a new tweeter, and things have to be a little bit different compared to 703s. And so we first heard this, the L200s play, and it did very well with keeping everything separated. So the doom, doom, doom. So that was a constant beat throughout the whole song. Doom, doom, and then you had the doom, 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 and that's where the tweeter shined. And that separation was very good. Everything sounded like it was going like this outward, which is what you want. You don't want everything to be so directional, especially not in music. You want it to be very spacious, very spatial sounding. And not that the 703s didn't do that, but the L200s did it better with their new waveguide and all that stuff in between. Sounds so much better than the 703s do. Again, the 703s are currently like, I don't know, $800 for the pair, and then you can get the L200s for $1,800 a pair. So that ingenuity is a little bit different over the years now, and you can kind of hear that now. It's not a significant difference so far, but it's a difference nonetheless. So let's talk about the second classical song that we heard. So the second classical song that I played was not something that had any kind of bass into it. It's more of the 100 hertz all the way up there to the top of the register. And this one was really supposed to test the tweeters again. I wanted to really hear the difference in the tweeters, and I was looking for stereo separation in this track. So when I was listening to them, the 703s did very well with separating the speakers, or separating the sound across the entire room. I didn't really feel like I could hear it coming out of one speaker or another unless that specific instrument was coming from that specific speaker. But you can kind of hear that piano, and then hear that cello, and then hear that violin, all separately, which is what you want. When I switched them over to the L200s, that's when you really heard the new tweeter and the new crossover. It really allowed the sound to come through with some super spaciousness. I don't know what the word is to use, but really spacious sound. I didn't hear any localization of any type. I moved around the room at certain parts of the song on both speakers, And the L200s did a very good job of helping me feel like I was always in the middle versus the 703s, where I can kind of feel that I'm shifting ever so slightly within the room. The L200s kind of kept me right there in the center of the stage, and all the instruments were surrounding me, versus the 703s that did it okay off access, but the more you got off access, the more you started to hear one speaker and less of the other, which of course you grow away from them, but not every room's a perfect room, a equally shaped parallelogram. You want a speaker that can help you across all of the couch or all of the parts in the room, different seating. And I think that the L200s did a fantastic job of doing that, especially in that second classical track that I played. Now the last song that I played was the Battle Hymn, and I'm very, very familiar with the Battle Hymn because I sang that through college for like 4, 5, 6 years. But I'm very familiar with that song, and I was a bass in that song when I first started, then switched to baritone, then I ended as a tenor, all in that song. So I know what to listen for when it comes to that song. And I chose this song in particular because it's all male voices. It's from the Navy Academy, the Naval Academy. And they sung it all men. So every high note you heard, every mid-range note, every bass note was all male voice. And so this is really going to test the speakers and how well can you separate those voices and those voice parts without making everything sound conjumbled and muffled and all that stuff. You wanted to still be able to hear the separate parts, even though they're all low registers. So the tweeter wasn't really utilized for anything other than instruments. So that little part there, they did that. But all the voices and everything came from that new turbine cone. And this allowed me to hear how well that turbine cone can separate different frequencies from each other, especially in male vocal arrangements, like what we heard. And it did very, very well. Now the 703s did good too, but they struggled on, what part was it? They struggled with the instrument part of it. With the piano, but doom. That part in the background, I really lost the instruments. The voices came through fine, but the instruments in the background kind of fell to the background, which, let me explain why I say it that way. Even though those background instruments are background instruments, it was almost like they weren't there. I heard a lot of male voice and a lot of different parts, but I didn't hear the accompaniment. And so that was something that kind of struck me with the 703s, but with the L200s, it brought more of that piano forward and more of that flute and that piccolo, or whatever they had in there. It brought that forward and kind of helped really accompany the male voices. Now the part that went, in the beauty of the lilies, that part, the acapella part, very, very good on the L200s. I was able to hear every part. There's like 3 or 4, there's at least 2 parts in there. Maybe there's 3 parts in there. There's a bass, a baritone, and a tenor part at that acapella piece. And it did very well with separating all of the parts. The top register was balanced with the low register. I heard a really good bass note out of the male section, of the bass section in that song through both speakers, but better on the L200s. They were way better with separating those 3 parts, especially in the acapella part. And I really have to give a round of applause to the L200s for that. Not that the 703s couldn't do it, but again, the L200s just did it just a little bit better. Alright, so the point of this video was to decide, is the L200s that much better than the 703s? And also to decide, is it worth the upgrade if you had the 703s? And I think yes in both categories. I think if you had the 703s, they are worth the upgrade going to the L200s. Now, if you don't have the 703s, there isn't a giant jump in audio quality. There isn't a giant jump in productivity, bass response, volume, any of that stuff. It's not a huge gap between the two. So if you're looking and comparing, oh my gosh, the 703s are $800 for the pair versus $1,800 for the 200s. I think if you're not super serious on music, I think you should go for the 703s. I think they'll make you just as happy as they have for me for the last 3 or 4 years. If you're somebody who's into music and movies and really cares about audio quality and spatial surround and all that stuff, I think the L200s will be your best friend at the end of the day. So for me personally, I like the L200s. If I had the money, I would keep these guys, but I have to send them back. But that leads me to say, we're gonna do one more test with the L200s. We are going to play them in a movie theater setting. The first time I played them, we played them as surround sound speakers, but this time we're gonna put them up front and let them play full range movies and see how they handle it. And that'll be my last test for them, and then I'll give you guys my general overview of these speakers. So if you enjoyed this video, guys, leave me a comment down below. Let me know which one of the songs out of the 4 was your favorite songs. Let me know that. Also, let me know if you had to choose between the two speakers right now, which ones would you pick and why? But you have to buy them. They're not free. So if you had to buy the two, which one would you buy? The LSim 703s or the L200s? Let me know that in a comment down below. Hit that like button because the video took me forever to edit. And hit that subscribe button too while you're there. We'll see you guys in the next video. Kpaceguy out. Peace.